Thanks for tuning in to the Spread Your Wingspan podcast.
I'm Sara.
And I'm Jennie.
And we're your hosts, two friends who immediately bonded over our secret smut addictions. So join us as we journey together through our favorite romance and fantasy stories and discuss all things kinks, female pleasure, taboos, and more.
Make sure to check out the show notes for any spoiler alerts and content warnings. We're happy you're here. Let's get to today's pod.
Hi, Jennie.
Hi, Sara. We're on part 2 of today's schedule.
Extremely exciting. We are not alone right now.
We are not.
We're here with author of 9/10, J.M. Frye.
Hi. Hello.
Our listeners?
Yes, my name is J.M. Frye. I'm a Canadian author. I have been writing since 1990. And 9/10 is my lucky number 13th book. It's my first completely independently published book. Everything before that has been with an agent and an editor, but this one I decided to go alone. My previous books have been named Publishers Weekly Best Books of the Year on that list, on the New York Times Best Romances of the Year list. And 9/10 is, I have to say, the book of my heart. A lot of people say, oh, my debut book was like my book baby, but I think 9/10 was the most J.M. Frye book I've ever written, and therefore it is my favorite child at present.
Oh my gosh, that's so lovely. That sort of answers some of our questions, but
Ooh.
So, should we just
Let's jump in.
We both had a very similar, we wrote our questions separately and then cross-referenced, and we had both wondered kind of where did this book come from? What was the inspiration for writing this book?
It's a bit of a hard one, so stay with me on this story. I had to let go of my agent kind of in 2020. 2019 is when it sort of became clear that our relationship was no longer a good one. And I don't want to say that she was a bad agent, and I don't want to say anything awful about her, because she was really good. She's really good at her job. She's still working. She's very good at her job. She just was no longer a good fit for me. At the beginning of my career, I was doing one thing. By the time we'd gotten through 6 books together, it was no longer, what I was writing was no longer what she was good at selling or what she was interested in selling. So we parted ways, and I thought, I need to write the most J.M. Frye book possible, because one of the problems that I'd had with her is that she thought what it is that I do was this thing, and I had come to learn or come to evolve to be that thing. So I thought, I'm going to write the most that book possible. So my books were always too queer, so it was going to be really queer. Too Canadian, so I was going to make it as Canadian as possible. Too long, so I have to tell you, the original draft of this book was 218,000 words. It's
a lot of words.
It's 147 now. I have tightened it, but it was 218 when I finished, or 217. So I just, and then too kind of caught up in the historical stuff. And since I wrote that book, I have realized that my author brand is contemporary queer romance that is speculative, but feels historical. That's my brand, because that's everything I'm working on now too. But at the time I thought, I'm going to write the most J.M. Frye book possible. Therefore, the next agent I get couldn't possibly be misunderstood about what it is that I am and what I do. 348 rejections later, I decided to self-publish because this book is perhaps too J.M. Frye. That's okay. I still love it and I'm proud of it.
Oh, that's so fascinating to us.
It's everything you're mentioning is what we enjoyed the most.
Yes.
Yes. It's interesting because I can get into that process later, but a lot of, when I got the full manuscript requests, a lot of the rejections from that, none of them were the same. I hated the voice. I loved the voice. It was too long. It was too short. It wasn't epic enough. It was too epic. It wasn't historical enough. It was too historical. It wasn't queer enough. It was too queer. Nobody said the same thing twice. So I never changed anything about it.
Because you're not, then it's just whatever floats each person's personal boat.
Yeah. So this one just wasn't meant for traditional publishing, and that's okay. But as for where the idea came from, so while I was thinking I want to do this super J.M. Frye kind of book, I was going through, I have a folder on my desktop called Not Novels. And I was going through it because it's where I write down ideas or scenes or chapters, or if a character comes to me, or if I've been walking through a museum and I have a good idea, I put the pamphlet from the museum in there. And I was going through it and trying to find something that would come together in an interesting way. And I was reminded of an idea I had back when I attended Brock University. Yes, my main character, Colin, and I went to the same university. I had an idea about dragons hoarding people instead of hoarding gold, because of course, what's the most valuable resource on the planet? It's people. So what if dragons were hoarding people? And what if the princess saved the dragon, but with a cane instead of a sword? And again, a cane because I had just had an accident. I was relearning how to walk. So it was a deeply personal idea, and I could never quite figure out how to do it, especially because I loved the idea of, if this is what dragons are, if they're hoarding people, then that makes them monarchs and emperors, right? Mm-hmm. That means the nobility would have to be dragons, because the nobility is what hoards resources and drives colonialism and drives enslaving people. And then I thought, but not every culture has that. Only Western European cultures have that. So what would indigenous cultures look like? What would the Maori be like? What would Pacific Islanders be like? What would African people from Central Africa be like? What would dragons from Canada be like? And then I was reminded of the story of Lilawala, the Maid of the Mist, who was rescued by the Great Thunderer, Hino, who was a god who lived behind Niagara Falls. And I thought, well, what if instead of a god, that mythological character was a dragon?
That's so fun.
And of course, I couldn't tell that story because I'm not Indigenous. So I wanted to be respectful of that. And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm making the Maid of the Mist story a dragon story, then I have to make every mythology dragon stories. And that's where I sort of came up with this idea of this dragon, this white Western dragon who has come here for reasons of colonialism and who owns parts of Canada for reasons of colonialism, but has a conscience and hoards the people in his territory and has a crush on his barista. And the princess became a grumpy barista with PTSD instead of a cane, but sort of the same idea. And then kind of the last thing was that 2020 happened. We lost my grandmother, who was the matriarch in the family. So the book became very much about grief and exploring grief and anticipatory grief. And then, of course, the lockdowns happened. And so that the anticipatory grief became a much larger part of the story. And like a lot of Canadians, on the urging of some Canadian celebrities, during the lockdown, I did the University of Alberta Indigenous Histories course. There's a free online course. Anybody in the world can take it. And as I was taking this course, I was like, I'm so mad at my ancestors. And I'm 15th generation Canadian. I have been here longer than the United States of America, or my family has been here longer than the United States of America. Not me specifically. So when people say, oh, my ancestors did this, I'm like, I'm directly related to some of those assholes. So a lot of that was me taking that on board and going, what kind of accountability do I have as a settler? And how would the dragon feel having seen everything and then see conversations come back around to land back and settler accountability and dismantling colonial structures? And somehow in all of that, I wrote a love story.
Yes, you did.
Oh my goodness.
So there's the journey.
Yes. Yes. Wow. I am fascinated because I think so. Sarah is a writer, and so often on the podcast she'll share about her writing process and how there are so many different writing processes, and it's so delightful to hear you give us the through line for how we got this book.
Yeah, and it's like all of that is in here.
Yes.
Like it all makes sense.
Yeah, but it wasn't consciously put in.
It's such a wide net that was cast.
Yeah.
Of like a personal journey, and then like from that these characters then become these like avatars of aspects of that personal journey, and then I described this as like a really like practical utopia, the like kind of end of this book, like how do we practically make positive change. And I described it as very hopeful, like I found, especially in the times we're living in, especially in America, like it was such a balm. So to hear where you're coming from, of like again like your personal history with your families, participation in the colonization of Canada, and then being a way for you to make peace with that, maybe, or offer some kind of penance is a word I also used a lot when describing this book with Dav. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think, go that step further than a lot of people to say, no, this is something that we can think about, we should think about, we should talk about, we should acknowledge. I think oftentimes in our country, this divisiveness, people just avoid talking about things or avoid acknowledging, like, well, racism doesn't exist. Well, yeah, it does. And you may think you don't participate, but you're in a society that has these rules and these things. So I think it's a really beautiful way to just say, like, okay, this is my history, this is me, this is what I want to explore. And out of that, we got this fantastic book.
Yeah, and I've like been assuming as a reader, maybe just because of the inherent bias you have towards the first person storyteller with Colin, like that was maybe your, again, like more avatar for who you might be as a person. It's like, oh no, there's so much of you in Dav then. That's so interesting, right? Like that personal history is also coming from this like more monarchy side of things. That's so interesting to learn. It's also really cool, like as Americans, like we, I think as a country, do not engage with our history of the indigenous people that were colonized in the same way that happens in Canada, from what I understand. I think maybe we're a little bit behind. Very interesting that there like is no America in this book.
Yes.
There's a little America. There's a little America. It goes from Louisiana to the Atlantic. It's all of Florida, but it's everything basically south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Okay, so
funny.
Is there
not New Mexico and not Texas? So there is a map. There's a map hold on. There is a map.
Oh wait, there was a map on the first page.
It wasn't cool.
Yes, there was.
Amazing.
So my thing with maps at the beginning of books is I'm like, cool, I'm going to remember this is here so I can reference it. Do I ever remember to reference it? No.
I can.
Please do.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, like, Colin is my avatar, because Colin speaks like me. So Colin's voice is very much my voice. Like if you see me on a panel, I mug the same way. I mug into the microphone the same way that Colin does. I'm irreverent, I'm vulgar, I'm crass.
We love it.
Yeah. And just, I'm going back to what you were saying about like the book being hopeful and ending on a hopeful note. I do make a point of it. And this is after having conversations with my Indigenous sensitivity reader, that I personally do not offer any solutions. And Dav doesn't offer any solutions. And Colin doesn't offer any solutions, because we are all white and we are all settlers. So the point of the end, because a couple of people have said, I feel like they felt that the end of the book was a cop-out because I don't explain how the world is made better. And my thought is, well, it's not my place to explain how the world is made better. It's my place to say the world needs to be made better and then hand the microphone to somebody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was important to me that those solutions weren't itemized and laid out and solidified. It's up to the imagination of the reader to decide how the world is made better at the end.
Yeah.
I appreciate leaving that room for imagination, because I think I did. I finished this book maybe like 20 minutes before I was going to turn up my light and go to bed. And so I was just basking in the end of a book I was like, wow, what a cool world that I can now think about.
Yeah.
That a step has been taken. And we also really loved the bringing in of Elizabeth the First. That
Oh, good.
that was probably one of our favorite. Like,
We were saying on the pod, we were like, "Oh, Queen Elizabeth." We know
Not
what we
the-
were thinking of,
the
right? Like
modern
recently
one.
passed.
Yes.
And then you meet her, and they're describing her physically, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be so fun."
But the whole attempt to convince her
Yeah.
to do something,
Yeah.
I was like, wow, what might she have actually said if this were real? And then I ran with that after the book, like, okay, yeah, listen to the indigenous voices.
Mhm.
Let's dismantle the colonial structures that have been put in place. Let's take the ways that things have been working in the rest of the world as example, and like teach people. So it was fun. That practical utopia that Sarah is calling it, I ran with it for that 20 minutes as I was falling asleep, and it did make me feel better. It did make me feel hopeful, like they've got this, they're gonna figure it out, they're on the right path.
Yeah, speculative fiction is so often dystopian.
Yeah.
So often these like men like writing in horrible word. And it's so refreshing, and it fits. We've talked so much about romantasy and like why is it so like female coded? Like why is this such a thing that like women share, and like what does that mean, and what are we getting from this? Why are we drawn to this? And it's poignant and refreshing to read a book of speculative fiction that's housed within romantasy, and it's just as important, and it's just as meaningful, and it's just as intelligent, and it's romantasy. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a cute romance,
Yeah.
and it's cozy, and you made me want to drink coffee so badly. I was reading it at night, and I was like, damn it. Like, that's happening while I'm thinking about the colonial structures of the world, right? Like you get that in a romantasy book. You're not necessarily going to get that in a speculative sci-fi, right? You will if it's really good. And I just think that's really important, right? Like that this stuff isn't discredited because it's romantasy. Like it's just as meaningful.
Yeah.
The second question was sort of already answered about research.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, because it sounds like you did extensive research.
I'm a bit of a magpie when it comes to what I like to watch. So people say, "Oh, you're so good at research," and I'm like, "No, I watch Lucy Worsley documentaries for fun." That's the difference. I've seen everything that Ruth Goodman has ever done, everything that Tracy Borman and Eleanor Yanega and all of those sort of online TV presenter personalities. So things like Medieval Tudor Farm and those television programs where they show you the domestic archaeology of life. Now, I wish they had more set in North America because they're all English scholars doing English work. Well, Eleanor Yanega, I think, is American, but lives in London now. So I have to extrapolate what's happening on the continent to North America at the same time. Okay. But it's things like, I mean, people are like, wow, you know so much about Tudor England and chimneys. And I'm like, yeah, but that's only because I fell into a rabbit hole because of like an offhanded comment by Hob Gadling in episode 3 of Sandman. And then I went and watched a Lucy Worsley documentary about like literally burning money. And
Yeah.
Magpie. So then when I sit down and write it,
spicy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And because I went to Brock University is right next to, it's in St. Catharines, Ontario. It's right next to Niagara Falls, Canada. And the War of 1812 is a big thing there. The Battle of Lundy's Lane. Lundy's Lane is now sort of like a funhouse, Carney Fair sort of area for tourists now, but there was a big battle there. The Battle of Beaver Dams and Laura Secord, the actual real Laura Secord. All of this stuff is fascinating to me. And I just saw you say you never knew she was real.
wish I knew more about this history. Like, I don't even know enough about American history, honestly. But as I was reading it, I was like, yeah, I need to do some like side quest Wikipedia-ing. Because I really wanted to learn more. Because so I was wondering, reading it, I didn't Google, I should have. I was like, is Laura Secord a real person? It seems like she obviously is.
She was.
Okay. Was she related to chocolates?
Okay, so in the 1910s, there was a gentleman who wanted to do a Canadian-based chocolate company, and he named it after Laura Secord in her honor. She had nothing to do with
her.
The chocolates. But the real Laura Secord really did. And so her husband in the book dies, but in real life, he was wounded in battle, but he didn't die. And their house in Beaver Dams, their house was in British Canada, and they were occupied by American soldiers. So they say billeted. She was billeting soldiers. A bunch of soldiers showed up and said, "This is our house now." And it was a bunch of officers, and they're like, "You will cook for us, you will clean for us, you will take care of us." And she was like, "Oh yes, of course, absolutely, yes." Listened to all of their plans, eavesdropped on everything they did, escaped in the middle of the night, left her injured husband at the house and their children, escaped in the middle of the night, and walked, I can't remember the exact number, but kilometers in the middle of the night alone, until she was found by a Mohawk scout and brought to an actual Canadian officer, explained everything to him. So even though the Americans marched on Beaver Dams with greater numbers, they were anticipated, and they were ambushed by the indigenous soldiers, warriors in the bush, and it was a resounding loss for them.
All because of her.
All because Laura was like, "F this," and walked. Right? That's why she's so badass in the book.
Why everyone was so excited to meet her in the book.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Thank you for teaching me that.
Well, she was a real woman, and she was almost entirely forgotten about by history until one of the European princes, or one of the British princes, I can't think of his name, came to Canada, and someone was like, "By the way, this is Laura Secord. She's been petitioning for like a pension for years." And the prince was like, "I'm sorry, she did what? You guys suck," and gave her honors, and she was spoken about in the newspaper, and he gave her a money prize. She was supposed to be buried at the Sir Isaac Brock's Memorial, but she's in the Lundy's Lane Cemetery instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. What an amazing human.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Women of history.
Yeah, she was so cool.
Yes. Sure. So we were curious, as two women who live with anxiety, that we resonated a lot with how the anxiety scenes were written, and appreciated that you took time with them. Like, they're not skirted over; they're part of Colin's experience. And so we were wondering, how did you approach writing those scenes?
So part of it is a disability is a disability. So I walk with a cane. I've been hit by a car. I have been struggling with my mobility for the last darn near 20 years now. And I really, really hate it when people dismiss it and don't let me do things for myself and try to take control. So a lot of Colin's dislike of people trying to do things for him because of his disability, that's definitely me. But I also have had, from the accident, PTSD and all of that. So I've gone through it myself. And the important thing for me was, if this is the mental health challenge that I'm going to give him, then I have to approach it respectfully, and I have to give it time, because if the princess's sword is going to be a cane, then Colin's superpower has to be his anxiety and his panic attacks. He has to be able to weaponize that and live in it and understand it. And I also have friends who have panic attacks, and I've had panic attacks. So it felt disingenuous to use it but not honor it. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about how like it's not used as a plot device, it's used as character depth. And that's a really important line to walk. Like it
Yeah.
it doesn't serve itself to like propel the action necessarily, but because it's part of Colin, it is involved in the propulsion of the plot. So like it's not cheap. It
Mm.
makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And again, as somebody who I also have PTSD, like I have dissociated, like I was like, oh my God, like this is so accurate. Like it's so easy to read, like, and then she was breathing fast and or what, and kind of this like
Yeah.
glossing over it versus like actually taking the time and the courage as a writer to dive into how uncomfortable that is and to trust that your reader is going to be okay sitting in that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it was because it's a first person narrative, and then because it's a first person present narrative. So Colin is explaining things as they're happening. I have, on top of the accident, I've also suffered sudden organ death. So being in the emergency room, having that panic attack, of course, the writer brain in me was like, catalog this, catalog this, catalog this, even as I was going. So then I could draw back on that and be like, okay, I remember every second of being in that emergency room, even the seconds where I was disassociating and I was high off my face on my third bag of morphine.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, what was that like? Let me recreate that. Let me be honest about that experience.
You feel that, like you feel his presence in the absence. Like you feel that he's still there when he's dissociating. It's not just like a blank spot in the novel. Like the dissociation part of what you're reading about. That's so cool. I mean, obviously it's not cool that happened to you, but it's that it became at least fruitful towards, creating this character.
Yeah. And from what I know about writers listening to this one, I can imagine you in that moment being of two minds, like, remember, like, what is happening? Remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're having a meta. Okay, can you tell us more about the choice to break the fourth wall? Speaking of like the writerliness of it all,
that didn't happen in the first draft. Like that didn't happen right away. I don't really know where that came from.
Colin?
It came from Colin himself. I really like meta stories, so I have written. So Time and Tide, my most recent previous novel, is about a woman falling in love with a writer. And the Accidental Turn series is about a woman who has just done her PhD on this fantasy series called The Tales of Kintyre Turn. It's sort of like kind of Lord of the Rings meets Xanth meets Game of Thrones sort of fantasy epic, Brandon Sanderson kind of thing. But she gets pulled into the world of the novel, and because she knows so much about the novel, she's like, no, I know how this is gonna go. Let's just circumnavigate. Like, you're trying to pull me into some hero's journey BS. I'm just gonna go this way instead of that way. So she like janks the plot because she knows how the plots go, and she interrupts the villain because she knows what the villain's gonna do, because that's how these books always go. So I really love stories about storytelling, and I blame Diana Wynne Jones for that, because, Howl's Moving Castle is the perfect metafiction book. And I didn't intend to write this one as meta as I did. I mean, that was also one of the things that my previous agent had said. Are we done telling stories about stories yet? Can we just tell stories now? And I was like, no, never.
Frustrating.
So I did make Colin love romance books because I wanted him to be a hopeless romantic. Like I wanted him to fall fast and hard for a good grand gesture. And Dav's grand gesture. But it was sort of, as I was writing it, Colin at one point said, "Oh, are we at the pinch point now?" And I was like, "Girl, who are you talking to? Are you talking to me?" And I had a conversation with one of my beta readers. She hadn't read much of it by that point, but she and I have known each other since the late 90s, when we used to write fan fiction together in a Yahoo group. And I said to her, what if I like really Jane Eyred this? What if What if we did Reader, I Married Him?
Yeah.
And she was like, I love it. I love it because then it explains why Colin would get in his own way so much when it comes to romance. He's really expecting romance to go the way it goes in books and movies and things, and it never does in real life. And he gets in his own way about it. It's sort of like Austen Land, if you've read the book or seen that film, where she's so the main character is so about this is how it's supposed to go that when it goes a different way, she's missing it. And then Colin started getting cheeky and just pointing out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And someone said in a review, and this was not my intention, but now I'm stealing it and pretending it was my intention. Someone said in a review, oh, 9/10 is the book that Colin wrote.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I could totally see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So thank you, reviewer.
Present online conversation. I'm immersed in a lot of Reddit related to our podcast, the books we read, to kind of stay immersed in like what everyone is talking about, at least in that zone of the internet. And that's a big thing people are talking about right now is like, is there about to be a lot of think pieces on like, is romantasy actually making romance harder or worse, or like setting expectations and like what fulfilling. And you know, I really enjoy it. I really can relate to Colin being like having all these fantasies and then also having a lot of hangups personally because of the trauma, right? So it's like this desire of who you want to be or how you want to be loved and loved back. And then that kind of sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop constantly is really, really getting in the way. And so a lot of the book is him learning to kind of sit with his fear of, you know, losing someone in the way that he lost his dad and recognizing that that's not necessarily going to get resolved, but that doesn't mean he can't be loved and loved in return. Yeah. And that's very, very beautiful. I think a lot of people need to hear that, you know?
And it's a hard journey with grief too. I think that for me, the biggest lessons of grief in my life is just to treasure what I have. I don't think without my periods of intense grief would I truly appreciate the relationships and the people that I have. And so in this short amount of time with Colin and Dad, you see him start to kind of be like, okay, no, but it's worth it. I might be scared, but it's worth it. And no, I really love him. This is worth it, but I'm still scared. And, you know, I enjoyed that interplay because I think that's a very personal thing for me in my life, in my grief. And just what I've come to learn is that we just got to love our people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That amidst the whole kind of like bisexual insta love is also
yes,
really good.
And fall in love and feel deeply very quickly. It's boggling.
Who is your favorite character to write? Speaking of all these lovely, you know, you have the like found family going on. There's all these kind of like like minor characters, but they are very integral to the plot. You know, even like Pedra is really important, even though we don't spend a lot of time with her. So I was wondering if it was just Colin or if there was, you know, somebody who just was so fun.
I really like Jem and Stu. I'm an older sister. I don't have any older siblings. And I have two younger brothers who are not twins, but they're very, very close. I think they're 51 weeks apart. My poor mother.
Very close.
So not quite twins, but pretty close to being twins. So I tend to not write characters with pets because I don't have any pets or without siblings. And I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I'm an older sister and because I'm so much older than my brothers that we were never in school together. We grew up in the same house, but we didn't do the same activities together. So a lot of our childhood didn't actually intersect. So I grew up a little bit like an only child. So I tend to write only child characters. So for this one, I think it was a conversation with my mother. She said, why don't your characters ever have siblings? Why don't your characters ever have pets? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good question. Why don't we choose it? Yeah, that's a thought. So I was like, well, I'm gonna put siblings in this one. And then I realized that Colin was such a younger sibling. He had to be the youngest.
Oh my gosh.
Yes,
100%.
Had to be. his character just wouldn't work if he was the eldest or the middle.
Yeah, no.
Yes, now that you pointed out, 100% agree.
Yeah, fully agree. Yeah.
So they were a late addition. And there was a whole section with them in it that I had to cut out. But when Colin, the plot used to be that when Colin got freaked out about the arranged marriage and he was like, oh my God, I belong to you. In the book, he just does the long nighttime of the soul in the shower. And he has like his depressing emo moment, and then he's
love.
and then he's back out. But there used to be like 3 or 4 chapters where he actually runs away back to Aurelia. Onata helps him get out. He runs home to Aurelia. His mom doesn't understand what's happening. His brother's really protective. His sister, who's a librarian, has more access to information than the rest of them, so she's doing research. The paparazzi follow him up to Aurelia. And then actually Simcoe himself shows up and said, no, this is what you wanted. You have to come with me now, and basically kidnaps him back. And there was a lot, it got really dark because it was very much about like possession and being an object, and that sort of dark romance thing where you belong. You've been kidnapped and you've been put in a house and you can't get out. And the kidnapper expects you to fall in love with him. And I wrote all of that. And then I was like, this is interesting and not for this book. It was way too dark for where I wanted to go with the book. So that all got pulled out. But there was, like 3 or 4 more chapters with Jem and Stuart and fleshed them out. But it's not the last time you'll see them. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Wondering about that. Yeah. So our next question, is there a particular scene that was your favorite to write?
I mean, the meat ugly. I think that's been in my head. The bit where the dragon, I think the line, I'm a dragon, not a fire extinguisher. What do you want me to do? Suck it back up?
Yeah, that's so
I think that's been in my head since the inception of this idea. Like I believe it's in the not novel file with that line. One of the very first lines I wrote for it. I love the idea of the bean roaster going up. And I used to work at a fast food place, and the kitchen did catch on fire. Goodness. And the foam came out, and we had to kick everybody out. It took us like 12 hours to clean it up. So that stuck in my brain, the taste of that cloud that comes out of the pipes. Like just the whole experience really stuck in my head, and I've always wanted to put that on the page. So I think maybe that was my favorite scene.
That scene was so funny, even though like it's scary, like but like the way that they're kind of like Frey's like flailing and
the comedy, like you could just see it happening and being like,
yeah.
I kind of did that when I was reading it, like, oh no, like we went. It really, it was very funny.
I feel like if there's ever a TV series adaptation, I feel like the book needs a TV series, not a movie. If there's a TV series adaptation, I think it would have to be done in slow-mo with like opera behind it.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that. And I do agree, this would have to be a TV series, not a movie.
Oh, yeah.
There's too much.
Too much. Yeah. Too much good stuff.
It's true for like most fantasy. This would be better.
Fair.
Longer.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fantasy, we've talked a lot about on this podcast, kind of like here and there, not as like a kind of thesis, but like of the relationship between fantasy fiction and like fascism, and how in times of fascism rising, like fantasy fiction becomes more prominent. And you could like kind of tracing back to Lord of the Rings. I'm sure it goes even further back than that. And this is a really like a big part of this book is, like, especially again, like I'm definitely coding a lot of current America onto that, but thinking like oligarchy, thinking about billionaires, thinking about greed, thinking about the people in power, the ones with the most wealth. And I was just curious, how maybe conscious that was, or what you were kind of trying to contribute there in that lineage with this piece.
It wasn't very conscious. I'm only noticing it now that you're pointing it out. But because part of the concept of the book was what would happen if nobles were dragons, obviously it didn't escape my notice that I'm talking about hoarding resources and nobility and all of that. And so when it came to Dav, I was like, how do I do an ethical billionaire? How do I make Dav lovable in a world where nobody loves people like Dav?
Right, right.
How do I make Colin fall in love with him when Colin is so much about environmentalism and sustainability and compassion? How can I make someone like Colin fall in love with someone like that? And the answer is I have to make him an ethical billionaire. I have to show him giving away as much as he's allowed to give away. I have to show him double paying his taxes and hiring everybody. Like the bit about the driver. I can't think of the driver's name right now, but Janet, maybe? Yeah?
Maybe.
Okay. Maybe the driver. The thing is, most humans in a horde they're not slaves, but they're told what to do. You're going to work in my factory. You're going to work in my field. You're going to, and in the 21st century, Dav's going, I don't know what to do with all these people. What do you want? And then when someone says, oh, I want to be your chauffeur, he goes, okay, great. And he just gives whatever he can. He feeds everybody all the time. Everybody's got a free house. Everybody's got free food. He is as close to the socialism utopia as Simcoe will allow him to do. If at the end of the book, if you said to him, well, I mean, he gives everything back to the Oneagra nation. But if you said to him, you have to give up everything, he'd be like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
It's responsibility I don't want. It's wealth I don't want. It's nothing I've earned. I don't want it. He'd feel differently about his family seat. Like if you were to say, and you have to give up
Sure.
St. Fagans, he'd be like, that's where my family's been for 700 years.
Right.
But, you know, they have St. Fagans, but they also own all of Cardiff and just that bit of Wales. So he'd be like, you can have Cardiff, but we'll keep St. Fagans. We'll keep the castle.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yes. Yes. I'm just thinking of Mackenzie giving away her billions and Melinda giving away millions.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there are ways to be ethically rich, but I think the question of, you know, what should billionaires be allowed to have? Like, should any one person be able to hold that much wealth? It's a timely inquiry.
Yeah.
And especially since Dolly Parton, while I was writing this, was funding the Moderna vaccine.
Yeah. What a badass. Oh, Lord Cord, Dolly Parton. Badass women.
Yay.
You want to talk about the title?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I lost track of whose turn it was. So we're curious about your choice for the title of this book.
Oh.
How did you arrive at the title?
So there's a fan fiction by Bending Signpost, which is a vampire AU for the TV show Sherlock. And I was reading it, and the title was Possession is 9/10 of the Law. And I was like, damn, that's a good title. And that story is also about a vampire Sherlock who wants to own John, but can't figure out how to do it ethically. And I was just like, God, this is such an interesting concept. And I wrote that in my not novels too, like an idea of a creature who traditionally owns a person, or a human in these sort of dark romance, monster effing kind of stories. I was like, how could I do that in an interesting way? And every time I came back to this dragon book, I was like, it's about possession. And I kept thinking of that story. So I was like, well, I can't take the entire title, but maybe I'll just call it 9/10, because possession is 9/10 of the law, and the story is about possessing everything and the legal ramifications of that. And then the interesting thing was I never intended on writing a sequel, and I never intended on writing a prequel. But a friend, an author friend, was like, Laura Sequard's too badass. We need to know how Laura and Dav met and connected, and their ships in the night romance. And then about Charlie as well, about Charlotte, who Dav was Dav's first favorite.
Yes.
His lost love. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I'll write that. And so I've started that one. I'm not giving any timelines for anything because I have so many other things due to publishers and other
That's okay.
Yeah, we can wait. We're patient.
Yes, we are.
and then I was like, well, if I'm going to do a prequel, then I want to see what happened. Basically, one of my sensitivity readers, my gay male sensitivity reader, was like, so when are they going to have a kid? And I was like, they're not. Damn it. So I'm about a third of the way through the prequel, and I'm a third of the way through the sequel, and both of those are also money idioms. I don't know if I should tell you the titles, but
Oh, I don't know if I want to know.
I do.
I of course there it is.
You can tell us after we record.
okay.
Yeah. And I'll go.
But at that point, it was like, okay, looking up law idioms or money idioms, or just, phrases like if you pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys.
Oh.
If you've never heard that one before.
I've never heard that one.
If you pay only peanuts, you can hire only monkeys.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I've actually I have found my titles, and I've also already designed the covers.
Oh, love it. I love it. Well, that was one thing at the end of our discussion episode. We both said, like, we want to hear more of the history. Like, we really loved this world, and the like, I love that you called them Homo Draconis as well. That just really tickled me. And I'm like, I want to hear more about how we got here.
Yeah.
So yay! I am absolutely delighted. We the sequel whenever we are blessed with them. We've talked before that some of the recently published books we feel have been rushed, and the writing has suffered because our
people are so like, give me the next one, give me the next one, and I feel like there's all this pressure, and especially in the publishing industry, but even if you're doing independently, to like produce, create another book.
Yeah.
But like we're like, we would much rather have like quality writing
and the books
and
that
wait 5 years. Like, I can wait. I'll reread 9/10 5 times until like like, you know what I mean? Like, that's totally fine. Take your time.
Take your time. Yeah. Great. Well, that's good to know. I'm very, very
Yeah.
So tentative announcement that there are more coming. I just don't know when.
You heard it here first.
It depends on everything else that I have. At least 2 books that I need to finish ahead of those ones. So.
Oof, busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Busy. Well, so we already we talked about this. So we're gonna tip that. But this is actually a great segue. Do you have any particular rituals that you have when you're writing, or is there anything I kind of want to know, is there anything quirky about your writing process that would just be fun for us to know?
I definitely do not write in order.
Okay.
I don't know how quirky that is. I think probably the most quirky thing is, so I went to school for acting. I was a child actor. I did semi-professional. I did not quite fully professional. I have since acting school done professional work, film, voice work, all of that. So I approach writing with a very actorly mentality. So when I said, I was laying in the bed going, record this moment, it was more an acting exercise than it was a writing exercise. But I definitely, especially for fight sequences and dialogue, I talk out loud so much. I pace around my apartment. I do acting exercises. If I'm really struggling with something, I will try to inhabit the character. I am definitely probably the most actorly writer you've ever met.
It's so
and I beat things out as if it's a screenplay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever use voice recording, like rather than like tippy tap on your keyboard?
Yes, but I don't do voice to text writing. I will instead record myself, especially when I was commuting a lot and I was driving.
Yeah.
I would put a tape recorder on the seat beside me, and I would talk my way through a scene and then get home and listen to that back and type it out.
Interesting. Because
Yeah.
I would imagine that the freedom to use your physicality to like solve something or like find a direction might be interruptive to then go like tap on your keyboard. That it would be more like record, your voice and talking through it.
Yeah. Voice notes as I'm pacing in a circle.
Yeah.
Kitchen, dining room, living room, kitchen, dining room, living room. Yeah.
One of the things that bothers me the most, which listeners will anticipate me saying this and laugh probably when they hear me say it, is like, it drives me crazy when I can't picture the physicality of a book. When I'm like, there, especially during sex scenes, but like fight scenes too, I'm like, that's physically makes no sense. And that didn't happen at all with this book. So it makes a lot of sense to me that you were thinking about how the body moves through this book, right? Like you can appreciate that as a reader, that it doesn't draw you out of the story because you're like, everything follows the physics of the world, right? Even when the dragon is shifting form, it happens in a way that my human brain can be like, yes, I see how that would happen, right? I don't think people who don't write necessarily don't think about things that way, like how hard it is to write that well. It can become nonsensical so fast, especially in fantasy. Like the way that especially that transformation is described as like, it happens in a blink, but he's able to like slow it down and describe it, and it all makes sense. Yeah, really well done.
Or when you have the addition of wings to limbs, like where are the wings when there's a leg?
Yeah. Well, I wanted it to be very clear and picturable, but one of the points with this as a fantasy is that the only magic that exists is this transformation. And I don't explain it, and I don't need to explain it. No. Someone else, a biologist, can go write some fan fiction and they can explain it. But to me, it sort of was like however million years ago, Homo sapiens and Homo draconis split off, but still tended towards crabification. They still tended towards bipedal.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that the dragon side of it got a little bit of like lizard DNA or chameleon DNA.
Yeah.
So it's magic, but it's more like science fantasy.
Yeah.
Because that was the only magic in this world, I wanted you to be able to see it.
Yeah.
I wanted you to experience, and I wanted the reader to really understand what it was. Yeah. That and the thing about the mRNA enzyme, the fact that humans and dragons are symbiotic beings.
Yeah.
And being separated by class and nobility and walls is harming both species.
Yeah. Really cool. Then the stonification that happens is
really interesting way to handle, because like dragons don't live forever. Right. They live a very, very, very long time. I also, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
I could see it. I could like viscerally experience it. I felt like I was in the room, like I could hear it. That was written so well.
With Robert the Bruce,
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. I was sort of thinking about monuments. Because like when I picture Robert the Bruce, or when I picture Queen Elizabeth I, or as she is in this book, just Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
When I picture Sir Isaac Brock, or so Francis Simcoe was a real person. He died in under Wellington in Spain of that gunshot that he doesn't die of in the book. His father, John Graves Simcoe, is a Canadian hero. Simcoe School is just over there. Actually, Castle Frank, if you look up through my bedroom window and across the valley, you can see Castle Frank, except that it burned down. So there's just a stone monument there. In my world, it didn't burn down because nobody makes a house for dragons out of wood. That would be
fair enough.
So I forget where I was going this. So when I think about these people, I think of statues. I think of Trafalgar Square. I think of monuments. I think of, and then in a world where these people are like 600, 700 years old, those monuments wouldn't exist. And it just sort of was like, well, what if the dragon is the monument?
Yeah.
So when a dragon dies, and you go to a castle and there's a statue of the late king that is the king.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that'd be really unsettling
Yes.
for a human, especially a human who doesn't know that, because that's privileged information.
Yeah. Very
that's
inventive.
really fun.
Yeah, that's really fun. I also was remembering towards the beginning when Colin was like anticipating seeing Dav shift into his dragon form, and it was a little kinky. He's like, oh, what's it gonna look like, and is he gonna be scary? Like, is this gonna scare me? I've never seen this before. And I also loved that kind of anticipation of, this is new, I don't know where this is going, I think I love this guy, but he's a dragon. Like, what is that? When he's kind of reconciling the whole thing, I really appreciated being in that anticipation with Colin.
You know me and my very dirty brain and the things that I read. I was like, when the fuck is a dragon and a human? It's like, that's...
They do. I just don't put it on the page. Come on, read between the lines.
Yes.
Well, I
know.
I was like, Colin's definitely going to ask for that at some point.
Oh yeah, the fact that
it was one of those door situations.
Yeah. Well, when he talks about sometimes they do evenings in the hideous orange lounge where Dav is in dragon form and he's petting his head on his lap.
Yeah.
Do you think Colin's got clothes on in that scene? Come on.
That's fair.
Yeah. I just couldn't. I wanted it spicy, but I didn't want this to be a monster effing book. I mean, it is a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've already done one of those, so
yeah. It's filled its own spot. Yeah.
Totally.
We should probably wrap up soon. We do have our final question is, what do you hope readers take away after finishing the book?
I like what you said about Colin being scared and doing it anyway. Courage is not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. I don't remember who said that, but it's a beautiful quote. And a lot of me writing this book was, I have fired my agent. The world around me is terrifying. I've lost somebody who meant the world to me. My father, I was so worried. Like, the minute the lockdown happened, I was like, that's it, I'll never see my dad again, because my dad has a lung disease. Now, luckily, he had COVID and he was fine. But lot of, I mean, basically, I was working through what I assumed was going to be my father's funeral through Colin. There's a lot of terror in the book. And that just comes from me being scared of what the situation I was in and what I was doing and the next step I was taking in my career. It was the right one, but it was a terrifying thing. I think I sobbed for 3 hours after I sent that email to my agent saying it was time for us to part ways. So a lot of the story is be scared, but do it anyway. And it's because of all of that. And I think if you're reading the book and you're scared, do it anyway. If you're scared of the government, stand up to it anyway.
Yeah.
If you want to value culture, stand up to the AI tech bros anyway. If you want to be loved, then love wholeheartedly. Be scared, but do it anyway.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And that is very much what my experience was.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the heart of the book.
It was. It's again, like, that's, I think, in the best case scenario, like what reading does for us, right? Is it gives you that extra bit of courage or that extra bit of love or that extra bit of joy, that you can borrow it from those characters, right? And so
I always say that I want my books to be a pebble. I want it to hit the surface of your pond and for there to be ripples. But then after the ripples are gone, after you finish reading the book, when you're laying in bed for 20 minutes before your lights are out, I want that pebble to settle in the bed of your heart. And in 20 years from now, I want you to think, this is hard, but Colin did it, so can I. Yeah. And I always hope that people who read my books end up just a little kinder, a little braver, a little more generous, a little more outspoken.
I know. I love
beautiful.
that. Is so beautiful.
And I think a really lovely note to end on, though I am sad to wrap it
Yes.
up. It's been so nice speaking with you.
Thank you
It's been so nice.
so much for writing this book. And we're going to secretly hope that you continue to write the prequel and the sequel, and that we'll get to talk to you about those someday.
TBD.
Yes. So I think final question, where can people find you? Where can our listeners find you?
Social media or otherwise, like,
Yes.
if they want to reach out or just follow along.
I am on Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, and Instagram as j.m.frey, JM Frye. And then my website is jmfry.net. So you can find all of my books there. And obviously, the best way to get my work is to walk into your local independent bookshop and ask them to order it for you.
Fantastic. And listeners, we will put all those links in our show notes so you can easily access and find our new dear friend.
Yeah.
We want to thank you so much for joining us. Yay! And hopefully we'll talk to you another time in the not so, but maybe a little bit distant future.
Well, fingers crossed. We'll see how fast I get through these other 2 books that I need to do first.
Fingers crossed. Thank you so much. Such a delight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Spread Your Wingspan podcast.
We would love to hear what you think about our topics today. Be sure to connect with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You can find us on both with the handle @Spread Your Wingspan, and all the links and more fun stuff are found on our website, spreadyourwingspan.com.
And if you have a book or author you want us to check out, send us an email at hello@spreadyourwingspan.com to tell us.
We hope you tune into the next episode.